Hi everybody, I'm Ryan, and today we're going to talk about Dress Down. Dress Down is a card that interacts really weirdly with a lot of different cards. Some make sense that I just want you to be aware of, and some make no sense at all that I really want to point out to you. So let's jump into it with important Dress Down interactions. First off is clone effects. So Dress Down does not affect things that happen as they enter the battlefield. So even if Dress Down is already on the battlefield, a clone can still enter as a copy of something. However, it won't have any of the abilities that it has on it. However, if something is an activated or triggered ability that causes that thing to clone, then Dress Down will stop that. The next that matters, especially in Modern, is Dress Down and Evoke Elementals. If Dress Down is on the battlefield when you evoke an Evoke Elemental, then yes, of course its enter the battlefield effect that you're casting it for doesn't work. However, also its Evoke trigger does not happen. Evoke is an enter the battlefield effect, and so it lets you cheat elementals onto the battlefield for no mana. You do not have to sacrifice them. This is a very famous one, Dress Down and Death Shadow. Death Shadow is a 13/13 that gets -X/-X, where X is the life total that you have. But if Dress Down's on the battlefield while Death Shadow is on the battlefield, then it's just a 13/13. It doesn't get -X/-X, which is an amazing combat trick. Kind of side note there, since Dress Down is sacrificed on the end step, not on the cleanup step, if Death Shadow takes damage and then Dress Down is sacrificed, Death Shadow will revert to its previous power and toughness while still having that damage on it, which sometimes will kill it. This is an unintuitive one, Dress Down and Dryad of Elysian Grove. So Dress Down will stop you from having the ability of playing a second land every turn, but will not stop lands being every basic land type. And here is why. It's because of this really unintuitive thing called layers. And earlier in my Magic career, I always thought of layers as timestamps, but they are totally different things. Basically, the game has a bunch of checks that it does to understand when the game state is. And certain checks have priority over others. I'm going to do a video on this in its entirety in the future, but in order, the layers are copy effects, control changing effects, text changing effects, type changing effects, color changing effects, ability adding or removing effects, and power of toughness changing effects. You'll notice that layer 4 is type changing effects and layer 6 are ability adding or removing effects. So the way the game checks things, it gets to layer 4, type changing effects, it sees that Dryad is changing the basic land types, and then it gets to layer 6 and it takes all the abilities from Dryad. So Dryad has no text, but it is changing the basic land types. I know it doesn't make sense. Layers are annoying. Next up is Dress Down and Dash, like with Ragavan. Basically, Dress Down makes the dash creature lose haste, but it still returns to your hand at the end step. Next up is a timestamp one, is Dress Down and Inkmoth Nexus. So if Dress Down is already on the battlefield and somebody activates the Inkmoth Nexus, it isn't really affected. It is a 1/1 artifact creature with Infect. However, technically it wouldn't be able to tap for mana. If Dress Down is played after Inkmoth is activated, it just becomes a 1/1 creature. And as a side note, also lose all abilities to reactivate. Next up is Dress Down and Regeneration Shields. Dress Down does not affect Regeneration Shields, even if the thing that is giving a creature the Regeneration Shield is on the stack. So the example that people normally use is like Thrun the Last Troll. You can pay 2 mana, give it a Regeneration Shield. If I pay 2 mana and try to regenerate, and Dress Down is cast in response, then Thrun still gets regenerated, because the Regeneration Shield on the Thrun is a game state issue, not a text on the card issue. And same is true for other activated abilities. The activated ability that is on the stack will still resolve, even if that creature can no longer activate that ability once it resolves. Next one's Dress Down and Cultivator Colossus. Cultivator Colossus, the alternate win condition in Amulet Titan. If Dress Down's on the battlefield, Cultivator Colossus will enter the battlefield as a 0/0, and its enter the battlefield ability will not be activated and it will die immediately. Next up is Dress Down and entering the battlefield with additional +1/+1 encounters. If Dress Down's on the battlefield, creatures will not enter with additional +1/+1 encounters. So this counts for Walking Ballista, Hangerback Walker, any modular creature. It will not enter the battlefield with any +1/+1 encounters if Dress Down is on the battlefield. This is also true for Murktide Regent and other types of counters, like Thing and Ice. Dress Down and Undying. It removes Undying because it removes text. Feel like that makes sense. Dress Down and Equipment. Because Dress Down only affects creatures, any power and toughness gained will still be gained from the equipment. However, if that equipment gives abilities to a creature, those abilities are lost. However, if they're re-equipped while Dress Down is already on the battlefield, those abilities can be regained, similar to the Inkmoth Nexus thing. Dress Down and hexproof creatures like Slippery Boggle or Gladecover Scout. Dress Down will remove hexproof, will also remove any other static abilities like lifelink or trample, but it'll still keep the power and toughness things from the enchantments that it has on it. If Dress Down's on the battlefield, when you cast Kroxa, for example, It'll enter the battlefield. You won't get an enter the battlefield effect, but also you won't have to sacrifice it. So you get a 6/6 for 2. Dress down and unlicensed hearse. While dress down doesn't affect unlicensed hearse while it's an artifact, if you crew it while dress down is on the battlefield, or dress down is played while unlicensed hearse is crewed, it automatically becomes a 0/0 and dies. Similarly, the constructs made from Karn or Urza Saga are on the battlefield, and you play dress down, they become 0/0s and die as well. So those are the major things that I could think of and I could find online of relevant dress down interactions. If you have more, you should put them in the comments. This card is really hard to play with and really hard to play against, and knowing these interactions is one of the first steps of leveling up your game against this card. If you like this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. Check me out on social medias. Links are above me and in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.